Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to make this 2.5-inch box, which has a lid which opens like so. This box has a really lovely profile to it, with these nice triangular sides. And I just wanted to show that if you use a good weight and a good design cardstock, you don't necessarily then need to add any mats and layers onto the outside of your boxes. This has been made from Hunky Dory Adorable Scoreable, which I think is about a 300 GSM. So this is the first one that I made, and I thought even for Christmas, if we were just to put a nice topper, I've just got a couple of snowflakes here on the top, that comes together as a nice last minute make if you need one. You can make these in under 15 minutes from start to finish, as long as you're not going to then be cutting any mats and layers for the outside. Start with a piece of cardstock which is 8 by 10.5, and along the 8-inch side score at 2.5, 5 and 7.5. Rotate so the 1/2-inch tab is at the top, and we're now going to score down to the second score line, so the score line which is level with 3 inches, at 2.5, 5 and 7.5. So this is the lid and the flaps for the box, and score at 10 inches from top to bottom. Rotate the piece 180 degrees. We've got a tab, 1/2 inch tab on the left and a 1/2 inch tab on the bottom, and down to the first score line only, score at 1 3/4 inch, 4 1/4 inch, 6 3/4 inch, and 9 1/4 inch. Rotate the piece back, so we've got our base glue tabs at the bottom, and we've got the 1/2 inch tab at the top, and this 1/2 inch tab is going to be the flap for the lid. Squares 2 and 4 are going to create the flaps for the inside of the box. So if I show you on this example, this is flaps 2 and 4. You may at this stage want to rotate the cardstock and put a score line or a pencil line in what length you want the flaps to be. So for example, if I want to have flaps which are, let's say, 2 inches wide, I would score at 7 inches within squares 2 and 4. So if you want to do that now before we remove the piece from the scoreboard, obviously you can go ahead and do that. You might be happy to trim them when we get to the stage of doing our cutting. We're now going to put our additional score lines in. You'll need your stylus and a ruler. I've got my 1/2 inch tab at the top and my 1/2 inch tab on the right hand side. We'll start with a full square. If you move to the bottom of the first score line, so this point here, we're going to score diagonally from the end of this score line down to the top of this score line here. So line your stylus up with the score point, line your ruler up, and then we're going to score our left hand diagonal like so. So we're now going to score from the top, the same point that we just started on this one, down to the top of the next score line. So we're going to create a row of triangles across this center row of the cardstock. So that's our second diagonal. Move along to the bottom of this score line, and we're going to join up with the top of the next vertical, like so. So we've now got one whole triangle here and one whole triangle here. And we want to do that all the way along. We've got our 1, 2, 3 full triangles, 1, 2, 3 full triangles. And now I'm going to take from the top of this first score line in the bottom edge up to the outside edge of the cardstock. So that's going to create us one full triangle on the top row and one half triangle on the bottom row. So you can see our additional diagonals. Fold and burnish along the full horizontals and vertical. We're now going to do our cutting. I've got my 1/2 inch score tab on the left hand side and at the bottom, and I'm going to start by cutting up each of the verticals through the first score line up to the second score line. So up this one here, up the next one, and you want to do that all the way along. So we've got 4 flaps and this thin piece. Rotate, remove that bottom rectangle and just cut a wedge into that side section. I'm going to start by removing the bottom flap out of the way, and the next flap up we're going to remove. So this is where the lid is going to fit in the front of the box. So you want to cut a nice straight edge. These 2 flaps here are the side fold in flaps, so these ones which I mentioned earlier. So cut those down to whatever size you so choose. I'm going to roughly cut mine like so. And then I'm going to take a very slight wedge from the sides of these 2 flaps. At the moment, we're going to leave this section as it is. So this is the top section of the box. Rotate, and we now work on the bottom. So again, cut up each of the verticals to the horizontal. Cut up the final one. Rotate and remove that long rectangle and just take a wedge from this glue tab. So we will do some trimming on these, but we're going to wait until we've put the box together so we can see how much we need to trim off for the base. We can now go in and fold and burnish the diagonals for the centre section, and these are going to be mounting folds. When we add the box together, you can see if I lay the glue tab over the side where it's going to be glued, obviously it will be glued on the inside, but you can see that the score line is going to run through the glue tab. Now, if you're using a lighter weight cardstock because it's your intention to add mats and layers, then that's fine. But if you're using a heavier weight cardstock such as this, the 300 plus weight, it's harder to re-burnish this score line once the glue tab's in place. So I'm going to just take a pencil and roughly, holding the glue tab on the outside, roughly draw the line where the score line will sit underneath, like so. And then I'm going to go in and cut away that excess. And that just means that the glue tab is not going to impede the score line when we glue the piece together. So now add your glue to your glue tab. I'm just going to use a tape runner because this one is for demonstration purposes only. Pull your piece round. It's easier if you just tuck the flaps out of the way to start with. It is a bit fiddly because you're working with something which is now been scored into an unusual shape. So you want to line up your score lines, push your glue tab from behind, and glue the side of your box together. So if you stand your box up, push your side flaps in, your lid will come across, and you can see the lid is sitting beyond the score lines on the inside. So the next thing I'm going to do is just take a section off of the end of the lid flap, like so. And you can also see at this stage whether you need to trim anything off of the outside of the flaps, or indeed if you want to make the flaps shorter. And you could of course add a finger notch into this section here. So this is going to be the top of the box. I'm going to have the flap to the right hand side as the last flap that I fold down on the base. So I'm going to just move that one out of the way. So you can stand your box up for this, move that one out of the way. So we've got our two halves here. I'm going to start by just pushing in the full layer, which is opposite the two split pieces. And I can see that I need to take some off of the side of that flap. So I'm going to just shape that flap slightly, like so. I'll do both sides. So that will sit down. And then I'm going to just fold in the two split pieces. I can see I certainly need to shape the outside edge of those. Add glue to this full tab, stick the two side split panels into place. This is the neck, so I've got my full and my split. So this is now the one which is effectively at the back, opposite the one which I designated the front panel. I'm going to lay that over, and again I'm going to just turn that around and just trim some off the side of there. That's going to sit on there nicely. So I can add glue to the back of that one, sit that over into place, and then I've got my last one, so I'm going to lay that down. I can square everything off at the same time, see whether I need to straighten the edges of this one up, because I've just left some of the score line behind, and then I can add glue onto this piece and pull that one down. Open the lid and just go in and burnish those down and spread the glue around. But as you're burnishing, just make sure that your base stays in shape and you're not moving the bottom section around at all. And I would just take my punch and just go in, create a small finger notch, fold the flaps in, and then my lid fits in nice and neatly like so, and there is our box. If I did want to decorate the triangles, I like to have an 1/8 of an inch border on all of the sides. I would start with the square of my DSP, which is 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Mark along one side at 1 1/8. I then trim this. Obviously I would do it with the trimmer if I was making this box for real, but this is just for demonstration purposes. Trim the triangle into shape like so, and then what I do is I sit the first one on, and you can see if I sit the DSP on, you can see that gives a nice border around the edge. So that's how I would cut the DSP on all of the sides. And then obviously an additional square for the top. It's a nice size box. It is actually 3.5 inches across at the widest point at the bottom, but obviously the sides then come in. And it has got a really nice look to it. So just another idea for some quick and relatively easy last minute gift boxes. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.